I think the reason I'm sat with you here today wearing this suit is because I've always had this inherent desire to explore challenges and adventure and seize opportunities, really. My name is John McFall, and currently I'm working with the European Space Agency. I'm part of ESA's Astronaut Reserve, and I've been working on the FLY initiative based at the European Astronaut Centre in Cologne. When I applied to ESA, it wasn't specifically to be an astronaut. It was the hope of becoming an astronaut. There was no flight guaranteed. What the recruitment was for a study called the FLY feasibility study under the broad umbrella of the FLY initiative. And it was to see if someone with a physical disability could become a professional astronaut. I got selected in November 2022 and I moved over to Germany in the summer of 2023. And what we did as a team, our awesome little FLY team, we worked quite closely with NASA and other partnership organizations like SpaceX. And we looked at what are the existing requirements to become an astronaut. So we're not changing the requirements, we're looking at and understanding the existing requirements of an astronaut. And we're seeing how me, with my prosthesis and my physical disability, how I can still meet those requirements. And so very systematically, very logically, very methodically, we went through many, many different requirements, identified where there might be things we need to consider, where we might need to do additional tests or investigations or assessments. And we came up with this plan, which ultimately ended up in us undertaking the necessary assessments and closing out the feasibility study with the report that stated there is no technical reason why someone with a disability like mine cannot undertake exactly the same duties as other astronauts on a long duration mission to the International Space Station as well. I think it's important to put it in that frame, where we looked at living and working in space for 6 months or more. So that includes everything from doing exercise on the International Space Station, so they're using the treadmill, the exercise bike, the weight training equipment, the robotics, all the other interfaces and integration requirements that you have for the space station, what it takes to be safe inside the spacecraft and inside the spacesuit, so all this sort of stuff. So that's what the FLY feasibility study was. For me to fly to space, there will have to be, so early on we identified that for some activities I will need a prosthesis. And with the requirement to wear a prosthesis comes some requirement to make some modifications or develop some new technology or systems to optimize the prosthetic hardware that I have already. And the hope is that actually some of that development has a trickle-down effect and benefits other amputees back on Earth. And a couple of examples of that are a very, very low profile quick change adapter that we are developing, which allows you to very rapidly take off the lower part of the prosthesis from the socket and put it back on again in a matter of like seconds. Another part of that is looking at socket technology. I have a very specific level of amputation and with that comes some complications or difficulties with wearing a socket. And so we're trying to develop a new type of socket that addresses some of the issues that I have on Earth, that I think if it works and it's the solution for space, that it will also be a really great solution for amputees with the same type of amputation as me on Earth. I do remember the moment I was selected as one of the final 17. I was sat having a beer with my brother-in-law at his house, and my phone went off in my pocket. And I'd been busy at home sorting out loads of stuff, and I'd moved lots of things around, and I knew that my wife was coming home with the kids, and my phone went off, and I thought it would be my wife asking me something, where I'd moved something to, where was this, and what have you done with that? And I was mid-flow in conversation with my brother-in-law at the time. I was like, I just finished this and then I'll call her back. So I ignored the phone call in my pocket. And then I pulled my phone out afterwards and it was a +33 number. It was a French number. I went, that could be the Director General. So I tried to ring the number back, but it didn't go through. And then literally a minute later, Joseph Aschbacher rang again and said, John, congratulations. We would like to invite you to Paris as part of the class of 2022 to be announced as ESA's new astronauts. And that was when I found out. The first thoughts going through my head at that time were probably relief, because it was quite a long process, and you're kind of at each stage of the process, you don't know what's going to happen next, right? You're waiting for an email from Nadine. Now, people in the know, there's this lady called Nadine at ESA, and we thought for ages that it was just an automated response that just was given a human name. But Nadine exists, and I met Nadine for the first time, and I was like, Nadine, you're real. And her office now is like 3 doors down from mine at the European Astronaut Centre. But you're waiting for this email from Nadine, the dreaded Nadine email, to say whether you have progressed to the next stage or not. And so, and there's no preamble to it. It could just be one day you just get an email in your inbox going, you are successful or you're not successful. It was quite a relief for that kind of suspense of the Nadine email to be over. I was also quite proud, I think, as well, to have known that I was now successful during the selection process, because there's quite a bit of self-doubting that goes on. Am I capable of doing this? How do I stack up against the other candidates? Yeah, so it was an interesting time. I think really the things that helped me get through were three big things. My amputation, my experience of that and recovering from that, coupled with my journey to becoming an athlete, and medicine, really. And I think in those early days, losing my leg and then going to Beijing in 2008, what I learned about myself as an individual during that period was hugely important and valuable, certainly from a point of self-identity, confidence, just this kind of maybe inner peace, I suppose. And that 8-year journey as an athlete actually gave me the confidence that I could do medicine. If I put the effort in, I could quite happily do medical school, because I always doubted myself when I was younger. I wasn't good enough. I didn't have the good enough A-levels, for example, to go to medical school when I was a teenager. But now to be in a position where I could do it as a graduate with a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, not necessarily the requisite A-levels. And now I was in this position with this newfound confidence that actually, if I put the effort in, I could achieve anything. And so that really stood me in good stead. And then doing medicine, again, working really, really hard, being able to cope with the long shifts, the huge volume of information that you have to take in, process and understand and use, decision-making, working under pressure, working in teams, working at night, difficult hours. That, I think, really served me well to go forward to applying to be an astronaut. And I think kind of encapsulating that as well, or wrapping all that up, was me feeling pretty comfortable in my own skin, not really having anything to prove. I kind of went there. It didn't matter whether I was successful or not. I was still very happy in my own skin. And maybe that came across in the interview, this honesty and this, that I was genuine. Is people have to appreciate that the day-to-day job you do before becoming an astronaut has to be your passion as well. That's what you want to do. And I'm hugely passionate about medicine, and it would be incredibly difficult for me to give medicine up. So if I get the opportunity to fly in the future, I don't know what happens after that, but I would still in some way love to be involved in medicine. But you're right, everybody has a job before they become an astronaut, and it's so important that you value that job and you're passionate about it. My relationship with science growing up was awesome, and I remember my parents buying me a book when maybe I was about 10, 11 years old. It was called something like Why the Sky is Blue and Other Wonders of Our Universe, because they knew that I loved trying to understand how stuff works, and I was always naturally gravitated towards science rather than more the arts side of stuff. And I remember really loving science at school, Not so much physics. I think that was because it was largely sort of maths-based. Don't give me the maths for physics, but I could really, really appreciate the practical application of physics, but I maybe couldn't explain how it worked. But I was always really, really interested in science. I never dreamt of being an astronaut when I was a kid, probably because I didn't know that actually it was a job. What do astronauts do? You know, I never really thought of myself in that position as in the future, but loved the science around space and looking up at the stars and understanding the planets at a very simple level at a young age, but always had an interest there. Everything that is space and science related, there is so much interesting stuff out there. There is something for everyone. I think the reason I'm sat with you here today wearing this suit is because I've always had this inherent desire to explore challenges and adventure and seize opportunities, really. When I was a kid, I always wanted to join the army, not because I wanted to be an instrument of government and carry out the strategic applications of the army. It was actually because I wanted to go to crazy places, test myself, stress myself, go on adventures, be put in challenging situations and stuff. And that's always, I guess, been part of my makeup. And if you flip that over to academia as well, I guess that's possibly one of the reasons why I ended up in medicine as well, because medicine is difficult, and I probably looked at it and went, I love science, I like understanding how things work. What's difficult? Medicine's pretty hard. Can I do that? And that's kind of how I ended up in medicine as well. So it's this combination of seeking out challenge, and probably because I find that so rewarding, coupled with what I find really interesting and what inspires me, which is actually probably quite sciencey based stuff. And then when this opportunity came my way in 2021, and I learned that ESA were looking for a new class of astronauts and looking for someone with a physical disability as well to potentially consider them becoming a professional astronaut, it ticked so many boxes that I've described to you. And I think as well, because I couldn't join the army after I lost my leg. It wasn't possible as an amputee to join the army. And so that opportunity to go down that route of adventure and challenge and exploration had been taken off the table until this came my way. And it was almost like another opportunity, a second bite at the cherry. And yeah, so I saw this and I just felt compelled to apply, and that's why I'm sat in my blue boiler suit in front of you today. Do you know, when you started asking that question, funnily enough, it wasn't a material thing that I was thinking. It's actually language. And there is a lot of that. And I've spent a lot of time traveling around the world and met lots of different nationalities. And something that always comes up is language, and often the English language, and how brilliant the English language is at everything, you know, things like double entendres and just how you can switch things around, and just the nuances of the English language. So that's probably the one thing that I would promote. I've got one of my good friends within the astronaut corps, Marco Sieber, Swiss astronaut. We're both medical doctors, and he's always so intrigued by my Englishisms, which I have to say are not always Englishisms that are across the whole of the UK either. It may just be a John-ism. But still, he just loves the play on words and the translation, I guess, for the English language. I'd love to take Road to the Stars to space, and along with a couple of other personal items as well, but there is a lot of history and tradition in human spaceflight, and I think that's really, really important to remember. And if you have the opportunity to carry that baton, to carry that torch, and do it again, I think it's great to carry on what is actually quite core in human spaceflight, is that history of tradition. So I would love to. Two things spring to mind, only because they're hugely sentimental to me. One is my Paralympic medal, my bronze medal from the Paralympic Games in Beijing. And the other thing is my 30th birthday present, which was an Omega Speedmaster, which is a special Olympic edition one as well, but that was given to me for my 30th birthday by my whole family. And it's an automatic mechanism, and I'd be really interested to see how the automatic winding mechanism works in microgravity as well. A shower. It's quite a simple one for me. I think probably two things actually, shower and fresh air. You're only kind of able to wash with wipes and water and stuff. So that's probably the one thing I would miss the most. This is such an exciting and interesting topic, isn't it? And it's something that you have to consider if we're looking to travel further afield into deeper space to live and have a permanent presence. And it's something that's actually on my radar with the UK Space Agency that's on their agenda of looking at. There already has been some science done looking at doing surgery in microgravity. So there's been some basic stuff done on parabolic flights, for example. But I do think there is going to be the necessity to perform certain types of procedures. You can take a very fit and healthy group of astronauts. They could still have an appendicitis, for example, and it's going to be really, really interesting. I'm super excited to see the connect between surgery and human space exploration. Hopefully I can be involved in some way. That would be amazing. Probably because it's not completely ludicrous. It's really, really, really unrealistic, but not ludicrous. I would love to go on a future mission to the moon. There is a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of potential and hope there in my lifetime. I've got to think how old I am, and by the time, you know, we are going to the moon with maybe slightly more regularity. But I would love to go to the moon. Absolutely, I would love to be part of the all-Brit space flight. I think it would be an opportunity for us to do it really, really well and make that connection with the public and science, and outreach would be huge on this. It would be a short duration flight, so the real sort of big science is slightly harder to do. The long duration science is slightly harder to do. But it would be an opportunity to engage so many people and really communicate and grow STEM, science, space, and just showcase how great we are in Britain at that.